For folks who don't know, 1959, launch a rocket that would take photos of the Soviet Union, so before Apollo and everything like that. And then it would parachute a film canister that would be picked up by a helicopter or plane before it landed in the ocean. The first 13 rockets blew up. It wasn't until rocket attempt number 21 they finally succeeded. And of course, it helped win the Cold War, but it was later declassified in the mid-90s, bought by a company called Keyhole that was bought by Google to become the basis of Google Earth. So I often say, government is innovative, they just don't monetize it, they leave it to others.
This is never a technology problem. A lot of what we talk about from the sort of up-and-coming emerging tech industry, the problems we're encountering in defense and national security are what we would call solved problems. We recognize them as challenges that exist elsewhere. Maybe the outcomes aren't as poignant as defense mission sets, but they resemble solved problems. And so this, to me, therefore, ends up being an understanding, education, and cultural challenge. The demand signal from my perspective, both in the UK and the US, is clear from our senior commanders. From the political top all the way through to those very senior stars, the adoption demand signal is absolutely there. What you're then getting into is the kind of bureaucracy of the system that then sort of fights itself. It's not that anyone in the system wants to see the downfall of the system. They all want to see success. They're just handcuffed with lack of understanding, perhaps a bit of a fear that they don't understand it, but then the processes don't help them to adopt.
What is your approach to handling this massive beast in government?
Oh boy, have my views changed. When I joined the federal government, I believed that it was impossible to make any change there. And I went to kind of prove that to myself. I am a lifelong libertarian. And I was like, this place is so broken. You're not gonna be able to change anything. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna prove that to myself. I'm so right. I was so wrong. And once you make a change in a bureaucracy, that's pretty addicting. Bureaucracies change all the time. People's position descriptions change. Their pay scales change. If you think about it, there's a lot that bureaucracies change all the time. And to your point, a lot of the book and a lot of what I've seen work is when people use the natural rhythms of the bureaucracy to make the change.
The really talented engineers that I have worked with in government never left over a paycheck. They all left because they felt their talents were being wasted. They felt they were being led and managed by people that didn't understand the technology and the mission and the change they were seeking, and they felt that they didn't have an opportunity to use their gifts. And they left frustrated, not because they were excited to make more money. They were left frustrated because they couldn't do what they wanted to do, right? They had a gift they wanted to give. They had a purpose they wanted to fulfill. They wanted to serve. And eventually they just got so frustrated that they realized, I have to leave government to serve government, and I'm going to have a bigger impact in the private sector than the public sector. And they left for those reasons.
You may be a senior leader, but then you come into a startup level. There's no one for me to lead. My job is to do whatever the company needs. And this is where I think the special operations world is very similar. You have the thing that you're better at than everybody else. I'm not a radio operator. I'm an intel guy. But the mission at the time needed radio operations to work. I'm not as good as the people who know how to do it, but I can help. And that mentality that allows you to quickly switch from one job to another, where no job is beneath you and no job is really above your ability. You just need time to learn it. I think really translates well to the startup world, because coming in, we brought a lot of engineers over from Google, but many of the team finds themselves for an hour doing marketing, and then you're doing program management, and then you're doing project management. And then, by the way, you have to switch into a sales mode, and you have to do this all the time. You can't say, well, I'm not a sales guy, because the lifeblood of the company is the revenue. If you can't bring in revenue, you don't have a job tomorrow. And so everybody's a sales guy. Now, at some point, we will grow large enough and have this massive sales team and sales processes. But until that happens, everybody does everything.
Most leaders in the government and in the DoD did not come up through the ranks thinking they're going to manage major IT programs. Everything is a major IT program now. And if we want to start having more future-focused systems and capabilities, they have to understand enough to know that the way we need to manage and lead has drastically changed. You don't need to be a data science expert, right? There are amazing courses on data science for leaders that are out in the private sector. And I know groups like the Army tap into that. Where Decode picks up is then the Pentagon happens. So you learn this great stuff and then you walk back into the building and you are just, I don't know how to apply this to a bureaucracy. So for a leader, the questions that you're going to ask of your acquisition team, your finance team, your legal team, your program folks, your IT folks is going to look a little different if you want the culture to change.
It's sometimes difficult to conceptually wrap your head around security. We often talk about a castle moat structure. There's my moat, there's my firewall, there's my door, it's my authentication. And you got to get past that two-dimensional traditionalist perspective of that and think more of a defense in depth. When you're setting up in a military defense, you can put an obstacle. That obstacle is not observed. It's not an obstacle, right? So are you monitoring or alerting on the things you're setting out there? Are you setting something out that's 2 clicks in advance to slow down and alert the attacker? He hits a trip flare, which allows you to see him before he gets in there. And then let's just say, worst case scenario, plan for him to be inside your network. And then think about what are the things you're doing inside the network, whether you're setting up like canaries or honeypots to kind of trick him, or like implementing an actual fully zero trust thing where someone has to re-authenticate and you're checking him on everything. So the implementation is not, hey, he's inside the walls now, he can have access to everything. Like, no, he's inside the walls. Every other door in the castle is locked. And every door in the castle has a different key.
If you are really digging down into basis points of shares here or there, you're probably not doing it for the right reasons.
That's right.
And because you are going to run into this integration process and the blocking and tackling, which you are doing shoulder to shoulder with your new team. And if you've chosen wisely, both on the buy and sell side, then that is going to help ensure success.